Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Ignacio Lacalle. I belong to the Universidad Politécnica de Valencia, and we are the coordinators of the project ASSIST-IoT, and more in particular, the Open Call funding opportunity. And this will be the second webinar organized by NGIoT, in which we are going to explain relevant things about our opportunity in the Open Call funding. In this case, we are going to dig a bit deeper into the technical challenges out of our pilots that Open Call applicants interested need to look into and try to solve with their technology. In case you want to know more, we already did a webinar last week that it's available on NGIoT YouTube channel and also ASSIST-IoT YouTube channel, in which we explain the global conditions and main goals of our Open Call. So without further ado, let's see how it goes about. As a quick summary, ASSIST-IoT is a project that aims at delivering a next generation IoT architecture with some key principles underlying, like modularity, adaptability, scalability, decentralization, to bring modern IoT technologies like DLT, 5G, AR, VR, natively embedded into current IoT architectures, which in this moment is not. To validate these goals, the very own project has 4 pilots in which it's working to deliver some progresses. These pilots, which were deeply explained in the last webinar, are port automation, smart safety of workers in construction sites, cohesive vehicle monitoring with the open ECU of an actual car with the calibration engine parameters, and the surface defects inspection in cars thanks to tunnel scanners analysis of images. So, building upon what we said today, what an Open Call applicant should take into account should be to understand and devise one project that will provide added value to one out of these 4 pilots we work on, and to validate the architecture, which is the main goal of our project. How is this to be done? Well, tackling some challenges that we are going to explain right now, and also technically being compliant with our modules in different ways, which we will also explain today. Regarding these challenges, focusing on the first pilot, pilot 1, contextualizing to maritime port terminals, in particular in the terminal port of Malta. The first challenge that we would pose would be to develop low-cost, accurate GPS to be equipped within cranes and vehicles inside the port, so that it could be leveraged by our edge computing equipment for a better localization of these vehicles within the yard, which is not easy at this point and not solved. A second challenge we would have for this pilot would be the integration between, which is the main core gathering technological element in a terminal, the terminal operating system, with the IoT data that is coming from different parts we're introducing ASSIST-IoT. We're introducing localization sensors, ultra-wideband anchors, container tagging identification, and other information, which is at this point not integrated with the main IT component in the premises, which is this TOS system, which is Navis N4, which has a format of XML RDT. So this integration, syntactic and semantic, would be interesting and relevant to apply for. A potential third challenge you can think of apply could be converting from the UPCA/DA protocol to be managed by ASSIST-IoT gateways. Up to this point, normally communication was done via MQTT or other communication protocols, but right now the modern cranes and other equipment, container handling equipment terminal, are adopting this new industrial transmission protocol, OPC-UA. So we would be interesting for you to develop this kind of connectors. It would be a fourth potential project you might apply for in challenge, which would consist on leveraging LiDAR information. Some cranes and some vehicles of the port already have LiDAR on OCR sensors equipped. So it would be relevant for us, for our use cases, that when a vehicle with a container is arriving, a truck, to understand processing this computer vision from LiDAR systems, processing which is the current stack configuration in the piles of containers, and to automatically communicate with the crane and with the system to prevent potential collisions. That would be a relevant also challenge we would pose. Fifth one, not the least, not the last one, would be a similar case, but specifically only on the RTG cranes for optimizing the paths of piling up these containers. So apart from the bearer information that we manage on which is the position in which in this kind of matrix in weight and size, width and height, sorry, of where the containers are located, using LiDAR, you could exactly know, thanks to computer vision, which is the exact position, and if it's confirmed in this matrix of distribution, and decide whether or not or where to pile the container. And in addition, which would be the best optimized track of the hoist to be placing the container over. And finally, in this pilot, we have also opened a challenge that would be of interest for you, and would be more in a communication network part of things, meaning the MQTT protocol, it's a very reliable one, and it's a very widely used in the IoT world. However, it has some drawbacks in terms of shortcomings when the network is not so good. So if the connection between the client and the server drops out or goes down, there is no way to recover the information that was to be sent. So a relevant application here would be to deliver a buffer to get the messages and queue them in case of failures or problems with the connection without losing the low latency requirements and low consumption, etc. capacities of the liquidity. Advancing to pilot 2, the one contextualized to construction sites and safety of the workers, we have opened a challenge which consists of mixed reality for support of OSH training. What does it mean? Well, creating, thanks to mixed reality over mobile applications, information that would help OSH personnel to help in the training to visiting the construction sites, the staff starting to work on the site, etc., saying which are the relevant things in terms of security that they need to take into account, integrated with the VIM models, the Building Information Management models in IFC format. That would be one challenge that you could apply for. Advancing on, we would have a second challenge here that would be a vision-based hazard monitor. So it would be relevant for the blue-collar workers in construction site to have glasses in which they could see, thanks to some processing, whether a danger is about to occur, thanks to processing, whether people visiting or people working there has indeed wearing the protective equipment necessary, and also helping doing some processing over video frames taken in the construction site. In addition, a third challenge we have opened here would be to moving from 2D to 3D maps. At this point, the technology we have developed in the project is of 2D, meaning we are able to locate, thanks to ultra-wideband and Bluetooth anchors, we are able to locate indoor personnel within the construction site, and we are able to plot it into an interface which is 2D. However, a good challenge would be to make it 3D, integrated with the B models that we have available also in IFC format. So if your company are working in these kind of problems, or you have already an application that would help here, don't hesitate to apply for this challenge. Continuing with this pilot in the construction site, we are also looking for augmented reality for workers, meaning well, a worker working the construction site would have an application of augmented reality, meaning glasses. We are using HoloLens for your reference, connected to the IoT elements, smart desk wearing, smart wristband, etc., alerting him or her about potential dangerous zones and dangerous events in the working site they are working in a dynamic perspective. And finally, I would think that it's not within our scope of the pilot, but it would be helpful for validating our technology, would be allowing the worker to have a mobile application in which they would be able to introduce these dangerous situations. If an area becomes dangerous for whatever reason, they would be able to, through an application, report which is this area, so that the other workers will have an information updated in a dynamic perspective. Well, advancing on in terms of the challenges, the pilot 3A, the one in which we have already a car provided by Ford Germany, we would like to approach two different challenges that could be of your interest and would be relevant for our pilot. First, introducing the analysis of human factors driving behavior in the car in combination with the data that we are already gathering related to the calibration of the engine, the drivelet, meaning the trip or the limited time trip that one driver is doing with the car, the exhaust engine emission analysis, etc., combined with the driver behavior extracted from the analysis of the images of a dash cam to be installed in the front of the car facing the driver. Another good challenge that we would like to have is to analyze all those data that have been mentioned from the exhaust, from the engine, from the driver behavior, etc., and combine everything and recommend a route to the driver within the edge node of the car in order to reduce, optimize, meaning minimize the pollutants emission, meaning eco-driver recommendation. Advancing to the next and last pilot, in which one company of the consortium does have some arcs, lighting arcs, through which cars go, and the defects on the surface are analyzed thanks to image processing and AI. Here, first relevant challenge we have opened is to try to merge and combine the images in a way that the coordinate system would be the same, because this is the problem in which aligning the coordinate systems in the same different cameras, it's not easy and it's unsolved, and we would like you to solve if you would like. A second challenge would be whenever these scanners are placed outdoors, there are introduced some shadows, some reflections that are bad for detecting these defects. So we would challenge you to get those images and propose algorithms and methods to remove those shadows, parking lights, sunrise, etc. A third one here would be the image acquisition and processing from user-aware edge nodes, meaning apart from the paired images, which can be of great size and very, very similar among them, and sometimes they need some context. So it would be good if an application could be delivered connected to ASSIST-IoT, the scanner and the images, in which the operator that is working there could introduce manually some other images as an annotations. In this image, this happens, or this has been taken in these conditions, or take a look to this repetition of whatever. So this would be also an open challenge we would like you to tackle. And last but not least, we also would like to challenge you to integrate this information with the efficient visualization techniques for this large samples in which there is not only one image but potentially 1,000 images consecutive, it's not easy for the human eyes to be checking those images and recognize and to say pay more attention to those which should be more important. So we would challenge you to deliver algorithms with auto-stitching techniques in which you could say, please pay more attention to this set of images because there's where problems are eyes. Okay, and finally, to integrate this kind of information with the most demanded IT systems in the automotive world. Okay, so those would be the main challenges that we have related to each of these 4 pilots. In addition, in all of them, we have also opened a bit the scope in which you can apply, so that if you are not very, very particular or narrow to those challenges, you still could apply to the open call funding in ASSIST-IoT. How? Well, solving either global challenges or proposing new projects in which new IoT devices will be inserted that will always remember to provide added value to the use cases and validate ASSIST-IoT architecture. So as long as you meet those 2 criteria and your proposal can be framed within those global challenges or new IoT devices, you would be eligible. Which are those global challenges? Well, just take a look at our architecture, in which we have device layer components, networking layer components in NGIoT, middleware services, application services, data management, data semantics, visualization mechanisms, UI, virtualization mechanisms, tactile internet, AI problems, fog, edge, cloud integration, efficiency, all those concepts which are part of our work. If you have an idea or are working in your company on something related to these aspects, and it falls under this criteria, don't hesitate to apply also for an open call funding. Please remember that there is a guideline for applicants document available on the website that you can check anytime, where all these questions are much more explained in much more detail, and of course our contacts are always available. So once we have explained the operational criteria in terms of the challenges and provided added value, let's see what does it mean to validate ASSIST-IoT architecture. And for that, you should pay attention to some different potential feeding of your technology into our architecture. And from our perspective, although it can be wider, we have drilled it down to 3 potential integrations. First, the preferred option, you have a software that will be integrated within ASSIST-IoT architecture. So it will be running within one of our nodes in the architecture, as conceived as I would have coined as enablers, which are pieces of software, containerized software, which are packaged into Helm charts and divided in one or more smaller components that are intended to be run over Kubernetes infrastructure. So we have IoT devices, edge nodes, far edge nodes, cloud nodes, etc., fog nodes that run over our own device version of Kubernetes installation and installed through our smart orchestrator, own of the project that we have developed based on ETSI's OSM. So that would be the first point. What you should do to go to say apply in that part? Well, deliver your software as an enabler. There is a manual in the guidelines for applicants in which you can understand how to do that and which technologies to use. A second way of validating our system architecture would be just to interacting with our say software and hardware as it was an external entity. So you would just query for information, get the information back, process it and provide some results to us or to the final user. In that regard, the main point you need to take into account is what we have called our Open API enabler, which is also very well described and explained in the guideline for applicants and also in our deliverables. And the third and last one would be you have your own equipment, your own hardware, and you would like it to become a computing node of an ASSIST-IoT deployment. For that, we have also prepared some documentation you will need to take into account so that as the very, very basics, the very, very minimum, this equipment will need to have a Linux operating system, will need to have Docker installed, Kubernetes installed, Helm charts installed, Cilium and OpenEVS to function as an interactable node of our architecture. Well, once we have defined what your actual projects needs to take into account when you're writing it, let's take another look at what was necessary for you to actually apply to our Open Call. So it's addressed to SMEs, universities, or RTOs, not for large enterprises, so big companies are not allowed. In addition, the proposal must be individuals, no consortia allowed. Okay, you have here very well summarized the flow, how it would go. It will be available to you to check, but let's say summarizing, you need to present your proposals before 14th October, 5 p.m., so 1 month from now. And you will have the results after an evaluation of peer colleagues, experts in the area with no conflict of interest. You will have an answer whether you have been funded or not by 20th December 2022, before Christmas holidays. Okay. In regards to the actual application procedure, you will need to prepare a proposal using the template provided, which is available in the website. And there you need to complement a maximum of 15 pages with your idea of the project, following the criteria we have provided before. Once that's completed, you will need to register your proposal through a form with this Outlook. You also have the link to the form already available in our website. And afterwards, once completed the form, you need to download the certificate of sending the form and send via a zip file, a compressed file, both the form complemented and the proposal in PDF format to the two mailing lists, to the two mail addresses included in this slide. It's also very well explained in the guideline for applicants. Remember, and this will need to be done before October 14th, 5 p.m. set. Proposals arriving later will not be considered. Having said so, we just encourage you, if you want to know more, about the next webinar that will be taking place 3 weeks from today on October 4th at the same time at 11 a.m. There's the QR link to the webinar and the information, and don't hesitate to be there. In that moment, we will devote the full session to a global overview very quick and for your question and answers. So if you have some questions, I don't know if we have some time now. Yeah, we have 7 minutes now. So feel free to do them now if you want, or if not, just come in 3 weeks and attend the last webinar. This has been all from my side, and thank you for your attention. If there's any questions, I am here open to solve. Valentin, if you want to let me know if there's any...
There's a question in the chat from Paolo about the side, some notes about ASSIST-IoT. What does the smart orchestrator do? Is it the generic orchestrator for resources or only for networking part?
Okay. What the smart orchestration does is to, considering that we have already attached nodes to clusters, and the smart orchestrator knows where these clusters are, everything is managed already in our product. It's able to install services there, network services and other kind of services in the form of Helm charts. That's what the smart orchestration does. From a centralized user interface and with specific parameters that are related to our enablers. So we have created a technology and methodology around it. So let's say that you want to install some database somewhere at some place in the edge to cloud computing continuum. You go to the smart orchestration, you either select the node or either request the orchestrator to select it for you, depending on certain, say, configurable parameters, and their smart orchestration does that, provided that you have prepared your software in the way that it must be prepared.
Another question also from Paolo. Can I install a specific service on a specific node? What is the persistence of the service?
Yes, you can. The specific persistence of the service would be twofold. First, if you say particularly define within your chart, within your Docker Compose of your components already a database in which you want to persist your own data there, that's possible, and it will be installed in the node you select. Or you can rely on the central storage element of our own architecture, which is called the long-term storage enabler, that has some relational and non-relational database that can be accessed via HTTP queries, and you can rely on that for storing your data or storing your transactions or whatever. So it could be twofold, and it will actually depend on your particular design on the service.
Another question. Maybe Paolo, you can turn on your mic and camera, and we can discuss directly, either rather than reading your questions. But for now, what is the density of the nodes in the worker building scenario?
What do you mean with the density of the nodes?
Maybe
how many people?
You can Nacho, you can check the chat, and okay, you can see there the questions.
Well, to be honest, Paolo, we are at this point, well, we are still 14 months to go in the project. The pilots are in an intermediate state of advance, so the final number of nodes is not yet decided. I can say that we are planning to install about 5 edge nodes, ASSIST-IoT gateways, which are the edge nodes, in which we will process the information. And the number of workers strongly varies from one day to another. And I am not in the position to actually explain that to you, I am sorry. That could be explained or discussed with the stakeholder owner of that pilot. We will have no problem to have this kind of discussions if you actually need to know that information for your proposal. Okay. Thank you very much, Paolo, for your questions. I see no hands raised, no questions in the chat, nothing. And it's already, we're 2 minutes short to 11:30. So if you are okay with that, Valentin, we might call it a day. And I hope this will be uploaded to our YouTube channels mutually. And we hope that more people will come to the last webinar so that we will